been there, won that t-shirts, go fuck yourselves. So hello and welcome to All Four Quarters, your one-stop shop for news, views and overreactions to all things NFL. This week we'll be seeing who's been naughty and who's been nice, who's got a present under the tree and who's got a bag of coke. So hey, we got Connor here this week. I'm going for another solo one in the run-up to Christmas, although we should have some more people joining the podcast again in the new year. So I'll take you through your lovely festive edition of the All Four Quarters podcast. Nothing too wild or crazy this week, obviously lining up for Christmas time, so wrapping up in work, going around and seeing a couple of people who are back from visiting abroad or living abroad and so on. And it's just getting very nice. The tree is up. I'm recording down here in the sitting room and have it in eyeline. It's all lit up with baubles that are all themed around Lord of the Rings pieces. It's very cool and not at all nerdy. And I hope you're all having a nice warm, cozy settling into Christmas time now. This should be hitting your phones on Christmas Eve. So hopefully all the presents are got and everything. And looking forward to Santa coming tomorrow. Let's have a look at some of the news from around the league. So we'll start with crime and punishment. What are they doing? Probably felonies. DK Metcalf has been suspended for 2 games after a confrontation with a fan at a game. He basically ended up approaching the fan on the sidelines, taking a kind of a bit of a swing at him, but it didn't really look like a huge amount. But obviously, when you're on the field playing, you can't be doing that with fans. Apparently, this individual is known to Metcalf previously. He had been reported to security at Seattle when he was there. This is not their first interaction. Now, the reports from DK afterwards are that he was talking about his mother and used some very specific race-related slurs that people don't use, and you can see how that would maybe cause the response. Metcalf plans to appeal the suspension, although there is a video now circulating that seems to show that the things he said, this person said, the slurs and so on, didn't really happen. But, who knows at this stage with cell phone footage and so on, what can be cut out or whatever. So we'll see what happens. This does appear to be premeditated anyway. Like, the guy was wearing a wig, so he would be recognized and all that kind of stuff. The interesting element for DK outside of just this is an individual event is that this will also, they believe, void the 45 million that guaranteed in his contract, which means the Steelers would have the option to kind of reconsider whether they want to keep him on the team, whether they want to renegotiate with him and so on. He hasn't had the world's greatest production, 59 catches, 860 yards and 6 touchdowns. Not exactly top end production, although you could maybe look at the quarterback and ask if that is playing into it as well. In the broader terms, he is their wide receiver 1. They probably will want to maintain him. Whether they're going to use this as leverage to maybe adjust the deal or something, we'll see. But yeah, kind of a tough spot for DK, and it sounds like someone who has form in trying to rile him up and trying to get these types of responses. If this is true and he's been alerted to security about not letting this guy in and so on, there's some maybe questions to be asked to the NFL security or the stadium security for allowing him into the building and so on. But we'll see what comes out of this. I'm sure we'll hear more over the coming weeks. Other bit of crime and punishment, Chargers linebacker Dizzle Perryman is suspended for 2 games for repeatedly breaking safety protocol and having unsafe tackling technique in game. This is kind of thematic for the Chargers over the season, and particularly the last couple of weeks. You look at the Jefferson ejection in the game last week against the Chiefs, where there were several hits that were very much intended to not be safe for the other player, not in a kind of want to beat them way, in a kind of I want to hurt them way. And just something to keep an eye on, because that's a suspension and someone ejected mid-game. Like, this is definitely being talked about as more of a team-wide thing at this stage. But Perryman is suspended for 2 games. Over in controversy corner, Kansas City have announced that they are going to be moving stadium. It would appear that they're going to be moving to Kansas State into Kansas City on the Kansas side. For those who don't know, Kansas currently play in Arrowhead Stadium in Missouri. It's kind of sad times. Arrowhead is an iconic stadium. It's been in use since I think it's 72 that they started in there. It's quite iconic. Big open air stadium, holds the Guinness World Record for the loudest stadiums and so on. I'm not a big fan of tax breaks and money going to billionaires to build these stadiums, and that's what's happening in Kansas. That's kind of what happened with the state legislature there. They have approved a bond scheme to provide funding for it. This is the, I think, sixth or seventh team to leave Missouri so far. Like, if you think back, we had the Rams also left St. Louis beforehand. They've lost the Cardinals, the Rams, the Chiefs from the NFL. They've lost the Athletics from Major League Baseball, lost the Kings from the NBA. They've lost the NHL team, who are now the New Jersey Devils. Like, the only team that will be left after this will be the Kansas City Royals, the baseball team, who will probably also look at moving. One of the problems is that it's the local municipality that owns Arrowhead, so they are refusing to do upgrades to it and to change, parking and things like that are all causing problems. And the Chiefs can't, because they don't own it, they can't build it. They've been refusing. They tried to buy it, I believe, a couple of years back. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. It does put a bit of a clock on. I really do want to attend a game over there, so I'm going to have to do that in the next 5 years just to make sure I see it before they stop playing there. But sad times. Yeah, I'm also not a massive fan of domes anyway, so we'll see. In terms of transactions, there's a few lower end ones, but there's one that I thought was worth mentioning. Tua Tagovailoa has been benched by Miami, likely to avoid injury that might cause further cap problems down the line. But essentially, this is the statement, and we've been talking about it on here for a couple of weeks at this stage, that the game plans were increasingly less involving of Tua. The one time they did it last week against Pittsburgh, I think it was, like, it didn't go very well. They've essentially moved on from him. From a playing perspective, he's not going to be playing for the Dolphins, or he's not going to be their QB1. The problem is that they gave him a massive contract, and there's a lot of dead money sitting on that at the moment. So how they're going to manage that becomes the question. If they were to release Tua, and they did it before June 1st, which is the start of the new season year, it'd incur a dead cap hit of $99 million, which would be the largest dead cap hit you'd have to hit. That'd be bigger than what the Broncos ate to release Russell Wilson and so on. If he's released after June 1st, it'd be a $67.4 million hit, and then the balance of 30 something million dollars would come the following year. Neither of those are particularly appetizing, but it's also not really worth keeping him on the roster. A $55 million a year backup quarterback doesn't really work, even if occasionally you do need to break glass and use them. Looking at you, Falcons, with your Kirk Cousins deal. But yeah, the likely thing is that they'll find a trade partner who will take on some of that cap hit, and they'll eat the rest for the trade. Yep, that's probably what they're going to be looking at. So look at teams in the market for a quarterback next year who might want to get to on a slightly cheaper deal, and they can probably get him at very favorable terms, because the Dolphins are just going to move on from him. Injury news, we've had a few. Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson reportedly has a serious contusion to his back and is considered day-to-day. This comes after he left the game this week that we will be talking about in the game reviews. We got very different reports from different people about how bad the injury was. The most recent update is that it's serious and he's considered day-to-day. So we'll track that and see how it goes. I believe the coaching staff said that it wasn't too serious, and then teammates said he couldn't move. So we'll kind of see. He kind of just, a contusion is kind of like a bruise type setup. He's gotten an injury to his back. More quarterback news. Kansas City's backup quarterback, Gardner Minshew, who was in because Pat Mahomes tore his ACL and LCL, has now also injured his leg. Now, initially they thought it was an ACL injury as well. Thankfully, that's not the case, so he's not kind of going off for surgery, but he's probably not playing for the next couple of weeks anyway. Chris Oladokin stepped in for him and played pretty okay. Nothing to blow your socks off, but also, we weren't expecting much out of the break in case of emergency third quarterback. They've signed Shane Bichelle as well off the Bills practice squad to come in and back up. Well, I presume back up actually Oladokin, but we'll see kind of how that shakes out. Bichelle had previously been with the Chiefs a couple of maybe 2 years ago or a year ago on the practice squad and ended up on the Bills instead. And Cleveland running back Judkins has a leg injury that just looked horrendous. So he broke his leg and dislocated his ankle. He's obviously gone for the season. He should hopefully be back next year. The broken leg timelines are better than if it was an ACL injury, so hopefully be all good. Kind of other smaller injuries that are important. Running back Henderson for the New England Patriots has a head injury. Stevenson stepped in for him last week and did good in the game. We'll be talking about that in the preview section. So maybe they just rest him and try and get him healthy for the playoff run instead. We'll see how that goes. Mostly that'll impact fantasy. He'll be back before playoffs anyway. And similarly, Green Bay's quarterback Jordan Love is in the concussion protocol. He came out of the game last week, just gone. And whether he'll be back in time, I'm not sure. It is a very important game this week, but protocol is protocol. So we'll just keep an eye on that in the run up for the games coming up. And before we get to those, though, let's go and take a look at the games from last week. So first up, we'll look at LA Rams taking on Seattle Seahawks in a battle for the NFC West. This was an overtime game that ended up 37-38, an absolute cracker. It was cagey at the end of this game, at the end of regulation into the fourth quarter. It was 30-30 tied up for 6 series with a missed field goal for the LA Rams in the middle of that. But we got to overtime, both sides scored, and a 2-point conversion. Seattle wins it at the end. Stafford, who's still leading my MVP race anyway, went 29-49 for 457 yards and 3 touchdowns. And that was even though the run game was relatively bottled up for them, going only 3.2 yards a carry. Nakua had a monster game, catching 12 balls for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then, getting it was a bad week for Puka Nakua off the field, but a good week on the field for him, I will say. Darnold was solid in this game, 22 of 34, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but they really did lean on the run in this one. 171 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, averaging 6.8 yards a carry. It's a good pass rush from the Rams, and they got home. There was 4 sacks in this game, so the reliance on the run game makes sense, take some of the pressure off. JSN was sub 100 yards in this, but was still the majority of their passing game. Everything does still run through him. There was a couple of controversial plays or decisions in this game, none more so than the first of the 2-point conversions for Seattle. So it was initially called an incomplete pass. It was passed and tipped in the air and so on. And everyone just kind of stopped, presuming the play was dead, and then Charbonnet picked up kind of casually picked up the ball in the end zone, as if to pick it up and bring it back to the refs, and it got declared a completed 2-point conversion because they reviewed it and said that the pass was backwards, so it was a live ball. It was crazy. One of the things that Puka Nakua took to social media afterwards to bitch and moan about. We knew this game was going to be close, but there were just lots of very exciting elements, and on all phases did their job. Defense stepped up, like I said. Holding the guys back for 3 drives in the fourth quarter, and forcing a missed field goal, albeit you could maybe blame the kicker for that rather than the defense. Their special teams did it with Shahid's punt return touchdown, keeping them in the game and helping get them back into it. It was very good, very back and forth. Very exciting. However, everything did have to break right for the Seahawks to win this one. Whereas the Rams, you could say they were on the wrong side of 1 or 2 reffing decisions. I think you can't leave it that close and leave it in the hands of the ref. But also, the Rams were in this game with no Adams on the field. Obviously, we mentioned last week he had that injury. They decided to err on the side of caution, which I think is the right call because you've got playoffs coming anyway. You need him on the field for those, and he should be back for the playoffs. I'm really looking forward to the next meeting between these teams. That's a split series between them. It makes it very exciting in the run up to see who's going to be able to take this division. But also, I would imagine there's a strong chance we might see these 2 teams again in the playoffs. Looking forward to that third game between them because these are two of the best teams in the NFC at the moment, two of the best teams in the NFL at the moment, and yeah, it was absolutely riveting stuff. After a season that's had a lot of stinkers in the prime times, this was an absolute cracker. Next up, Jacksonville at Denver, 34-20, a game that felt closer than that scoreline suggests. Jacksonville continued to impress with Trevor Lawrence throwing for 279 yards and three touchdowns and adding a rushing touchdown as well, being able to kind of work around the fact that the Denver defense just keyed in on their run game and shut it down, averaging only 3 yards per carry. Their defense came up when it mattered most. The Broncos had pulled the game back to 34-20 and were driving the ball down the field in the fourth quarter. But 8:08 and heartbreak happens. At 8:08 left on the clock, he was picked off. Bo Nix, to the Bo Leavers out there, Harry and the guys were going a little bit mental on the group chat during that. Bo Nix picked off by Jones with 8 minutes left. This was, a sloppier game from Nix and people have gotten used to, but he was still decent in it, 28-47 for 352 yards, a touchdown and an interception. But he also, lost a fumble. They had good success in the run game, but I think the game script stopped that. They were averaging nearly 6 yards a carry, 5.9, but they only had 12 designated carries in this. Like, they got down a little bit early and maybe they just kind of felt they had to go to the air more, and that was where they were comfortable. But like, if you're averaging 6 yards a carry, you're down two scores. You do need to score. But like, there's 8 minutes left. You can run the ball a little bit more, particularly if you're getting that level of success from it. My concern coming out of this game from the Denver side is this is kind of, it feels a little bit more like what we feared the Broncos might be, a bit closer to where they were last year, where they are they are good, they're explosive. When things are going right, they can really build up momentum and get moving, but they're a little bit brittle in the face of decent competition and really don't have a response to teams that aren't going to be gassed in the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter is kind of where the Broncos have lived most of the season. If you remember the Giants comeback game and so on, like, they're just kind of a little bit. I would wonder if once they start running into high quality competition and teams that are going to give them 4 quarters of battling, are they going to be able to find the kind of success that they're talking about? Because even a lot of the quality wins, quote unquote, that we would say they have, we can see that a lot of those teams aren't playing great this year. I put the Chiefs and so on in that bucket as well. On the other side, the Jags are running red hot right now, and they've only got the Colts and the Titans left on the schedule, so that's going to ease them into the playoffs. This does have implications for seeding in the AFC. Obviously, Denver, this is their first loss at home. They would love to be able to get home field advantage. I think they're currently holding the 1 seed at the moment. This means that if Denver drop another game, Jacksonville would get the 1 seed. This means that there's a potentially massive game coming up in week 18 between Denver and the Chargers, because the Chargers are only 1 game back for the division. And if that was a loss for them and the Jacksonville Jags have won out, which with the Colts and Titans I would imagine they should do, they might be able to get the 1 seed and have everything run through Jacksonville, which would be a huge turnaround for them, and a big blow to Denver, who do have quite a home field advantage at this stage. You could see it in this game, even though they lost, you could see how loud the crowd was, how difficult it was to get plays in. Like, you have to have a very confident offense to be able to go in there and go to silent counts and be able to manage that type of environment. And Trevor Lawrence really the last couple of weeks has stepped up and started to look like the guy we thought that they were drafting, or the guy who was touted as around the draft. So very exciting for them. For Denver, look, it's not gonna end the season for them, but it does maybe make you worry about what they might look like when they come up against tough competition. Green Bay and Chicago are up next, 16-22. Another overtime game. This one was won with a 46-yard pass to DJ Moore after a 10-point comeback in the fourth quarter. The Packers played surprisingly well in this, given, Micah Parsons isn't there, who was their big trade acquisition and a huge part of their pass rush and kind of the anchor on that defense for them. But also Jordan Love, who I mentioned in the injury section earlier, got knocked out with a head injury and was replaced by Malik Willis. Willis, I must say, played very very well up until overtime where he fumbled the ball, which didn't help them at all. He completed 9 of 11 passes for 121 yards and a touchdown. They knew they didn't want to put too much on his hands, so they loaded up in the run game. They ran the ball 44 times for 192 yards. This was a big running game on both sides of it. Williams looked very comfortable in this game, like also looking kind of like a bit more like his draft stock, looking more like the guy that, would attract head coaches to come and bring up. He went 19 of 34 for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 30 yards rushing. Now, I will say from the Chicago side, some sloppiness started to seep back into this one. They had 10 penalties in this game for 105 yards, which is not what you want to see. But this is a big emotional win for them. Green Bay beat them 2 weeks ago. Green Bay are still probably looking at the playoffs. We'll talk a little bit about permutations for that afterwards, but they're almost certainly good for the playoffs. It does mean a slightly tougher road than if they had won this. It does take the ability to win the division off the board. We saw two good playoff level teams here. One maybe short-handed through injury more than the other one. Maybe this result goes differently if Love isn't out of the game, or obviously if Parsons isn't there, but that's not something that's going to change if these guys meet again in the playoffs. So very exciting game, very good morale booster for Chicago coming out of this one, so very exciting for them. Tampa Bay at Carolina, 20-23. Carolina now in sole possession of first place in the division, and the Bucs are kind of just crumbling before our eyes. A ransom interception with 49 seconds left in the game sealed it. So this means all eyes are now trained on week 18 where these two play again. Young looked decent in this game, 21 of 32 passing for 191 yards and 2 touchdowns. They had a decent but not overwhelming run game. They were averaging 3.8 yards per carry for the running backs, and they seem to have kind of lost their way again a little bit. They're now swapping weekly as to who's going to be the lead back or who's getting more carries. But, hopefully they can figure that out. Ted McMillan is still getting the bulk of the work through the air. He had 10 targets, caught 6 of them for 73 yards and a touchdown. But again, like I said, this was not an overwhelming performance from Carolina. Everything was kind of middle of the road. And maybe the sad thing is that that's kind of all you need to do at the moment to beat this Tampa Bay team, who were banking on, injured players coming back and so on, giving the offense a bit of a spark. But it just looks a little bit rudderless at the moment. Like Baker went 18 of 26 for 146 yards, a touchdown and an interception. But like Baker, who has been injured already this year, is also rushing for 49 yards because their main running back, Buggy Irving, is sub 4 yards in this game. Like it's not working for them. They're not getting the deep passing game that was probably the calling card or the hallmark of this offense earlier on the season. They only had one pass in this game that went for more than 13 yards. Like, this Carolina defense completely kept the roof on the coverage and didn't let themselves get beaten deep. This was a very important win for Carolina because obviously they have Seattle next week and then a rematch with Tampa Bay to play, whereas Tampa Bay have Miami to play next week. Now, realistically, and not to jump ahead to the previews or our picks, but like, I got to imagine Seattle are going to handle Carolina. I kind of think Tampa Bay can handle Miami. So that leaves us in a spot where a winner takes all showdown in Tampa Bay for these two teams in 2 weeks' time. So it's going to make it really exciting, but I just kind of hope that both of them are looking more like their better selves, because this was a bit sloppy, a bit of a slog, obviously important to both sides, but neither playing their best football. And New England at Baltimore, 28-24. Drake May take a bow. This was a big fourth quarter comeback with a 2-point conversion in the middle, and then the defense shuts it down with Chazon forcing a fumble and a turnover, allowing them to win the game. This was May's first 300-yard game, which is crazy. I think I mentioned a while back, he has a bunch of 290-yard games, but it never cracked 300. And managed in this one quite handily, actually. 390, I believe he had in the end, with Diggs going for 138 yards. This was sloppy from both sides in this game with plenty of fumbles. The defense wasn't particularly splashy in this game either. They had no sacks and no interceptions, but they really toughened up in the fourth quarter to kind of close the game out, forcing kind of a punt and a fumble from Baltimore at the end to stop them from kind of going anywhere. As I mentioned, Jackson got injured in this game before he went out. He was 7 of 10 for 101 yards. He was out in the second half with a back injury. And Huntley came in, and Stu Huntley was solid. He's not overly exciting. But, we saw the difference that he was versus other alternatives. He knows how to run that offense a lot better. They knew what they had to do at that point, and they just went all run. Derrick Henry had 18 carries for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did have a big fumble in this game, and that's not great. You don't want to see that coming in, but he was having success. And then in what's being called a sideline mistake to do with the rotation of their running backs in those last two drives, when Baltimore just needed to not turn the ball over, they needed to just drive down the field, score some points. Derrick Henry didn't take a single snap, so he scored a touchdown. And then I think the last 8 minutes of the game, he didn't take a single snap. Another running back came in and hopped in front of him on a series that I think Henry was meant to be on. And then the same thing happened again. It was very, very messy. Like I said, I've got problems with how Baltimore are running their team. I don't like the direction. I don't think the coaching is making much of a difference at the moment. But yeah, it was things like that just wouldn't have happened 3 or 4 years ago. And yeah, like just ridiculous. The defense did okay in this one. Obviously, the interception and 3 sacks, but they showed a lack of discipline at the end. They just didn't have it in them in the fourth quarter to stop them. So this was very strong from the Pats, like a real settler following the loss to the Bills. Strong performance. Like, they were, I think, 1.5 point underdogs going into this one. So this kind of sets them up mentally for the playoffs, shows them that they can beat these tough teams. And, even if everyone's out to get them, they can still do it. Come back in the fourth, the 2 point conversion, the defense stepping up. Look, it wasn't the best game they've played, but it was exactly what they needed to do. And it's going to fill them full of confidence going into the playoffs. As we say, all games are important, just some are less important. For those games, we go to the dump off. Pittsburgh at Detroit, 29-24. Poor Detroit just can't get out of their own way. Pittsburgh scored 17 points in the fourth quarter to pull away, but the refs got involved on that final drive following Boswell's missed field goal. 2:05 left in the game. Because of the missed field goal, all they need to do was to score a touchdown and they would win the game. On that drive, there was 44 yards of penalties. There was 2 OPI calls that pulled touchdowns off the board, and a correct, I am saying correct, but bizarrely presented end of game call. We'd like to confirm that a touchdown was scored. Way! But due to offensive pass interference, this is the end of the game, causes loss of downs, and it's the end of the game. And the crowd is still cheering, goes, there has been no touchdown because it doesn't count because of OPI. Boo! And the whole crowd goes crazy. They made the right call, but yeah, maybe work on how you explain something like that to a crowd of baying fans who think you've just said they scored a winning touchdown. Warren had 2 45-yard touchdown runs. It was all short passing from Rodgers with the occasional deep shot and stout defense, and it worked well for them. Goff was passing well, 364 yards and 3 touchdowns, but like no run game at all in this game. 11 designed runs. Like, really, Dan? You have that combination of running backs and you're just going to go, well, I think Gibbs is a receiver instead. Get your fucking run game sorted. Pittsburgh looked better, but they're still kind of a low ceiling team to me. Campbell's words 3 years ago, enjoy it, boys. While it hurts, just enjoy it. We might never get here again, when they lost that NFC Championship. That starts to ring ominous at this point. Detroit are going nowhere this season and now basically out of the playoffs. Vegas at Houston, 21-23. Houston made a real meal of this one. Vegas looked more like what we thought they would preseason. A lot of, Ashton Genty, 168 yards all-purpose and 2 touchdowns. Gino looking efficient. Like, on the defensive side, how Houston just kept letting Bowers get alone or get one-on-one was madness to me. But yeah, this to me feels like a game where Houston were just looking past it like a trap game. They just kind of thought, the Vegas, we don't need to plan for that. And yeah, like, that's why you end up in a tight game. Unimpressive in its execution by them, but impressive that they didn't fuck it up, because I think, if we go last year, if we even go earlier in this season, Houston fucked this up, but they managed it, so good for them. They keep their hopes alive. Buffalo at Cleveland, 23-20. Allen hurt his foot in the first half, so this became a James Cook day. He carried the ball 16 times for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. Allen threw 12 passes for 130 yards. It was a dicey fourth quarter for both sides. Like, the Bills' last 4 drives went 36 yards, negative 12 yards, 19 yards and 9 yards. Cleveland's last 4 drives, 43 yards and got a field goal. Way minus 5 yards, minus 11 yards. Like, okay, they're down by 3 points. There's 109 left in the game. They punted away. Like, it's a coward's punt. I understand they were on their own 1 yard line. I understand it was 4th and I think 23. But like, you're down by 3 points. You can't punt in that spot. Like, unless like there's no point in, you know, for the sake of losing by 3 rather than losing by 10, not taking a shot. Judkins went out with an ankle fibula injury that I mentioned, so there was basically no run game for them. It was unimpressive, but you know, they're fighting through. Buffalo gutted out. Cleveland keep it somewhat close, but yeah, like, this was an injured Buffalo team who, missing their best player and most of the things that he would do for them, were still able to do it quite easily. 49ers at Indy, 48-27. Yeah, like, big day for Purdy. 25-34, 295 yards, 5 touchdowns and 1 interception. Kittle went over 100. Christian McCaffrey looking like classic Christian McCaffrey, 170 yards rushing, 23 receiving, 2 touchdowns. There was an interception TD for D. Winters, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin, brought it to 48-27. Rivers looked good as well, 277 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. But, you know, this Indy team lives on the run game, and the run game was stuffed. Taylor was averaging 2.9 yards a carry, and Abdullah fumbled the ball. So yeah, the 49ers are rounding into form at just the right time. Indianapolis, oof, it's just going real bad real quick. Philadelphia at Washington, 29-18. Well done, Philadelphia. They're all fucking trumpeting online about this. You did the fucking bare minimum. They locked up the NFC East. They've been wearing "been there, won that" t-shirts. Go fuck yourselves. That's fucking ridiculous. Like, this was terrible from Philadelphia. They fumbled on the opening kickoff. They had penalties on 2 separate tush pushes. They had 3 missed field goals in the first half. They were losing this game at halftime. This is no juggernaut. Regardless of the results, regardless of the fact they're putting together a couple of wins at the end of the season, like, this is a terrible team, and unless they can get over that, they are just going to get this shit kicked out of them in the playoffs. Like, Barkley got going. That's a positive. Brown got targets. That's a positive. Their defense looked real sloppy. Quite negative. The game plan was messy. Negative. Special teams were messy. Negative. You were playing the slowest defense in the league, and you couldn't get more explosives. You couldn't do more on offense. Like, Mariota got injured in this game as well, so Josh Johnson, their backup, came in, and they still nearly won this game. Like, Philadelphia, huzzah, you've locked up the East. Your team is shit. Get it together. Atlanta at Arizona, 26-19. Bijan had 168 all-purpose yards and a touchdown. Pitts continues his run towards free agency with just playing great. 7 catches, 57 yards and a touchdown. Algier at 79 yards. Cousins had a rushing touchdown. You look at that and you kind of say, why was this game so close? Right, yeah. Because Cousins fumbled and threw an interception. Arizona's running game somehow got going. They were over 5 yards a carry. McBride, you know, who's been the only bright spark in this offense. Obviously, the Atlanta defense just said, well, we can't let that happen. So Higgins became the top receiver. They're trying stuff in Arizona. It looks a little bit better, but it's still not quite working. Like, this is 2 dead teams smashing into each other, and all we can really say is several people watched it, I suppose. Kansas City at Tennessee, 9-26. Looks like the cracks that Mahomes papered over are more visible now than ever before. Minshew exits early with a leg injury. Entered the backup, Oladukin, 11 of 16 for 111 yards. He did okay. The run game wasn't up to much, still sub 350. There's little to no energy here, and a lot of people were out in this game. Tennessee get the win with 164 yards on the ground and a good game out of Ward. There's a song in their heart. They're feeling chipper. Kansas City have a lot of questions to answer. Hopefully this shines a harsher light on some of it. Tennessee got a morale boost heading towards the off season, but they better hope they don't, you know, cause any material harm to their draft picks. Jets at New Orleans up next, 6-29. Oh, Jets, just nothing is working. The run game was 3.2 yards a carry. No passing TDs. They take 8 sacks. They have an interception. They have a fumble. Like, the only positive I could find is their 2 kick returns were good, 34 yards and 43 yards. Like, you got that at least, I suppose. You scored one of those last week, if I remember, as well. So at least your special teams are doing something. New Orleans really have to start considering Shook going forward. He had a 300-yard game here and a touchdown. Taysom Hill got to play a lot in this game despite Shook looking good. He had 12 carries. He got to pass once. He got passed at 6 times. Like, presumably this is kind of a retirement do thing. They're letting him go out and do stuff because they're not keeping around next year and they want him to have a bit of fun because he's a team favorite and so on. Like, there's not much that needs doing here to beat this Jets team. There's not much that needs to be said about this game. I think the only question that this is starting to open up is, like, could the Jets be one and done with head coach Aaron Glenn? Like, it's not going well. There's no changes happening. I don't know. Maybe they might go one and done with him and try and maybe get an offensive mind in there instead. Who knows? Chargers at Dallas, 34-17. The Chargers now have the division in their sights. Dallas are eliminated from the playoffs. It was a strong first half from them and then they completely disappeared, albeit their defense wasn't playing well in the first half, played better in the second half. Herbert threw 2 touchdowns and rushed in another, with Hampton looking good, 85 yards and a touchdown, averaging over 5 yards a carry. Johnson hauled in over 100 yards catching. The Dallas run game was mostly stuffed, and Pickens got back on the horse with 130 yards and just not enough. The Chargers only one game back in the division now and eyeing it up closely. They get a match against them in week 18. Minnesota at the Giants, 16-13. JJ McCarthy is injured again, apparently, after a touchdown or a rushing touchdown, but this is a New York Giants team that is floating slowly down a river, bloating as the corpse rounds the corner. Dart averaged 2.5 yards per attempt through an interception. The defense got some sacks and got an interception, but realistically, barring the Giants defense scoring 21 points themselves, they're basically like Sisyphus personified, trying to do an impossible task here. Put them out to pasture, I think, at this stage. The big question out of this one is, do we know if Minnesota trust JJ McCarthy now? Like, this is his 4th injury in 2 years, having missed all of his first season. We don't know if he's actually any good. He's had 2 good games. He's had a couple of real bad games. Yeah, like, it's really hard to know what their plan is going to be going forward here. At least Justin Jefferson got some targets. He had caught 6 of 8 targets for 85 yards. But yeah, like, you can't take anything out of this game at all. Finally, Cincinnati at Miami, 45-21. Look, Joe Burrow said he wants to have fun, and it looks like Joe Burrow is having fun for this week anyway. 309 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an absolute root of the Dolphins on this one. Quentin Ewers was in for the Miami Dolphins. I mentioned that they benched Tua. He was not great, not terrible. 20 of 30 for 260 yards, but he didn't throw any touchdowns and did throw 2 interceptions, and this is not the world's greatest defense in the Bengals. I'm kind of sad watching this game because the Bengals team, particularly if they're playing like this, would have been fun in the playoffs. Miami, obviously now in a post-Tua era, however the cap will probably make that difficult, are probably in a full blow-up. I do wonder if there's any route for McDaniels to stay there. The management have definitely seemed to have gotten on board that Tua is the problem. Maybe he can convince him that, Tua was holding him back as well, and without Tua he could do something. But I think maybe it's just time to start fresh there. We'll see how that goes, but I'd imagine it's a full house clean that's coming in that. And on that cheery note, let's go and look at the games for next week. So we have Christmas Day games. This slate probably looked incredible back when they were putting it together in August, and now, boy, it doesn't look great at all. We got Dallas at Washington up first. I've gone for Washington. The lads have gone for Dallas. Absolute dead cat game. There's nothing to be gained out of this one. It's just division rivals going at each other. Mariota led Washington team, presuming that Mariota is back actually. They're okay. This Dallas team is explosive on offense, is real bad on defense, but is also a little bit kind of boom bust on the offense. So we'll see which one turns up. They'll have to travel across. It's not a game that matters a huge amount to them. Maybe Pickens, because he's got free agency on the horizon, might be a bit driven in this one, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, so I've gone for Washington. The boys have gone for Dallas. Detroit at Minnesota. We've gone for Detroit across the board. Again, 2 teams that don't have anything to play for in this other than pride. Detroit, they'll be trying to work out some things, figure out what they can do offensively, maybe try and get the run game back going again. For Minnesota, if JJ McCarthy is back. It's obviously going to be further evaluation of him and so on. This is just kind of it at this stage for this type of matchup. It becomes a motivational question because you're talking about two coaches who are relatively safe in their tenure. You've got players who are relatively safe in their tenure. Maybe they just use these to try out some things. You don't want to get Justin Jefferson injured in a pointless game against Detroit. So I don't know. Denver and Kansas City, Denver across the board. Yeah, like look, Kansas City are going to be on their third or fourth starting quarterback. Half the team is injured and they've got nothing to play for. Denver are romping away. If they were to drop this game, I don't know how it would possibly happen, but if they were, they'd be in real trouble because obviously the Chargers are only a game back in the division now. So I think Denver to win by a country mile. Into Saturday games, Houston at Chargers. I've gone for the Chargers. The guys have gone for Houston. These are two deep in the playoff hunt teams. This is a very important game for both. So it's a win and into the playoffs if Houston were to win. It's win and keep the chance at winning the division alive for the Chargers. In fact, if the Chargers were to win and Denver were to lose, which isn't going to happen, I think they would jump them. But it's yeah, it's a very interesting game because Houston last week made a meal of Oakland, who are not, or sorry, not Oakland anymore, Las Vegas Raiders, who are not a very good team. The Chargers have been up and down, but have been really on the last 2 or 3 weeks. But they're also brittle, and I don't know what this Justin Herbert-led thing is going to look like against a defense as high quality as Houston. I'm going to take them because they're at home and because I think it's a pick 'em game, and I'm going to side with the slightly more exciting offense because Houston, their defense is really good, right? There's no question about that. But they allowed mismatches against a Raiders team that don't have a lot going for them. They allowed a lot of leeway to Genti last week on the ground, and the Chargers. Hampton is back and definitely looks healthy, and Houston's offense looked fucking turgid last week against Oakland. So maybe it was just they weren't planning for it. They were focused on the Chargers, and that could well be the case. We'll see. But I'm just going to give Chargers the nod at the moment, being at home. But Houston, look, if that defense shows up and that offense looks better, then yeah, absolutely they could take it. This is going to be a real fun game because this is also potentially a preview of a playoff game that will be coming up in a couple of weeks. Baltimore, Green Bay. We've gone for Green Bay across the board. This is winning into the playoffs for Green Bay, or also if Detroit lose on Christmas Day as well for them. Yeah, Baltimore are they're looking rough at the moment. We don't know whether or not Jackson is going to be playing. Even if he is playing, he hasn't been effective for the last while. Green Bay on the other side, like we said, they lost a close one there. They might be down Jordan Love in this one, but they're at home. They've got playmakers. Their run game is working well. Like they just overall feel like the better team, and also they feel like the better coach team at the moment. So we're going to go for Green Bay across the board. Into the early window of Sunday, Tampa Bay at Miami. We've gone for Tampa Bay across the board because, yeah, like we've spoke about Miami, they're on to a backup quarterback who didn't throw a touchdown last week. The coaching staff that are on the way out the door, almost certainly. A lot of players who are just eyeing up free agency because there'll probably be a lot of house cleaning. Tampa Bay on the other side coming off a tight loss. They know that they need to win this one realistically if they want to have a good shot at being able to win the division. Uh, they'll be eyeing up what's happening on the other side with the Carolina game, but they're happening at the same time, so they need this to get the game back to be tied going into the last game against Carolina. Yeah, like Tampa Bay are just a more talented roster at this point. The only problem is that Miami defense does occasionally turn up, and they are at home, so maybe you might get it. And then Tampa Bay aren't quite firing on all cylinders, so we'll see what happens. New England at the Jets. Look, not much need saying here. New England across the board. The Jets might fire their coach after 1 year. Pittsburgh at Cleveland. We gone for Pittsburgh across the board. If they win, they win the division. They also clinch if Baltimore were to lose the game against Green Bay, which we're expecting as well. So if that was the case, they might start resting starters. So we'll see what happens. The big one in this one is Cleveland. We should get the sack record this week, I believe. And it's almost fitting that it's against division rival in Pittsburgh. But yeah, like Pittsburgh are head and shoulders the better team in this one, so not really much to ask. Similar for the next one, Jacksonville to Indianapolis. Yeah, like the Jags are on a heater, the Indianapolis Colts are going in the other direction. Phil Rivers is doing an admirable job with what he's got, but Jacksonville are they're on a tear at the moment. I don't see them slowing down. New Orleans at Tennessee. We've gone for New Orleans across the board. Yeah, they're playing great. Their defense is playing well. Tennessee are fun at times, but they're still not a complete team. They're still a real bad roster. They're at home here, but I think they're going to. I think New Orleans are going to be able to just move the ball on them, and their defense is solid enough. As long as as long as they don't revert to too much Taysom Hill based offense, New Orleans should have this one in the bag. Seattle at Carolina. I would love to think that Carolina could do this, but Seattle, like the way they played last week against the Rams, they are just so much better at the moment than Carolina are. Like Carolina are in it for their division and so on, but like they don't sniff. Like the third place team in the NFC West is better than the first place team from the NFC South. Full stop. Carolina could surprise if they come out. We've seen that Seattle have some problems with completing drives, getting seven instead of three, and so on. But we'll see. I find it hard to imagine Seattle not getting it here. Just as an outside note as well, if the Seattle win here and the 49ers and the Rams both lose, which I don't think is that likely, they would win the NFC West in that scenario. Arizona at Cincinnati, we've gone for Cincinnati across the board. Can Cincinnati are fun, and Arizona are copy paste description from the last time about Jake Brisket and high completion and very little else happening. Their run game looked better, so maybe that'll change things. But yeah, like Cincinnati at home, have fun, convince Burrow to stay, etc. Arizona, like yeah, everything we said about Miami is true here. A lot of players are going to be gone this year. Probably some of that coaching staff, if not all that coaching staff, is going to be gone as well. Into the late window, the Giants at the Las Vegas Raiders in a game that literally no one cares about. Myself and Sean have gone for Vegas. Ronan's gone for the Giants. I think Vegas are at home. They looked a little bit more like what you'd expect them to look like last week. The pass rush from the Giants is going to be a problem for them, but if they can get the run game going, it should be okay. No one cares about this game. I don't know if you're still here and you're listening to it and you want more analysis. Send me a message and I'll send you a personalized note on why this game, like where it'll turn. But no one cares about this game. It's the most irrelevant game outside of who gets to pick earlier in the draft in April, May. Philadelphia, Buffalo, big, big, big game. We've gone for Buffalo across the board. I think none of us really trust Philadelphia at the moment. Buffalo are mistake prone and so on. I think we'll want to check the injury status of Josh Allen. But if Josh Allen is healthy and they can just press the Josh Allen button and let him go and do his thing, they should be able to win here. It's more important for them to win anyway because Philadelphia have been there, won that, because they're super cool dudes and are definitely not a giant paper tiger. So Buffalo across the board. Sunday night football, Chicago at San Francisco. Chicago can lock up the NFC North with a win, or if Green Bay lose to Baltimore. They haven't quite locked it up, but they're basically, it takes a lot of results for them to not end up winning it. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Myself and Ronan have gone for Chicago. Sean has gone for San Francisco. These are two teams that are playing at a very high level at the moment, getting hot at the right time. I'm siding with Chicago just because I think there's a little bit more dynamism to it. I think the defense is doing some more fun things, and I think the offensive scheming that they have under the head coach is going to be able to stress the point of the defense that Salah doesn't have the personnel to be able to cover entirely with scheme, be it the outside linebacker positions, being able to draw people. I think we'll see an awful lot of Caleb Williams moving in the pocket to try and shift coverage away from guys and throwing them open. And I think it should be fun. I can 100% see San Francisco winning this game in that CMC seems to be back on form, but it depends on what version of this offense comes out. They are at home, which is a big advantage. So we'll see. I might flip flop my choice on this one when I get closer to the time, but for the moment, I just like Chicago on this heater, and they can lock up the NFC North. And San Fran, they are technically still live to win the NFC West. They just need a couple of results to go their way. Speaking of the NFC West, Monday Night Football is the Rams at Atlanta. The Rams, despite losing to Seattle last week, are still, I think I'd take them over Seattle on a single game knockout basis in the playoffs. Like Atlanta, you've had some fun. You'll probably do some interesting things in this one, but I think angry Rams will come in and absolutely stomp Atlanta. So that'll wrap us up for this week. I hope you all are going to have a lovely Christmas. Enjoy a lot of football. Uh, you're kind of lucky, even though there's games on Christmas Day, they're shit, so you don't need to watch them. Like they're all dead irrelevant games. So that frees you up to spend time with the family, or gives you an excuse to go and look at them and watch them as a break without having to focus on anything too important happening. I hope Santa brings you what you want. We'll be back next week, with the reviews of these games and looking into the last week of the season. But for now, it's bye from myself, bye from everyone at all four quarters, albeit they're not here to say it right now, and we'll chat to you next week.